Hello, everyone. Welcome to the weekly recap. I guess yearly recap, kind of. But
Yeah,
starting off with an announcement.
So we're going to be on Crossfire this Friday with Mooch. So that's going to be great, and the usual suspects on there. We've been wanting to do that for a while.
We've each done Crossfire,
yes,
just here and there, which has been a blast every time. But Mooch in particular, and we wanted to get both of us on there.
Definitely,
so this time it's both of us, which should be really fun.
Yeah, so definitely try to check in if you can. We'll hype it up on Twitter and share the links, and then if I can, I'll add a link to this video in the future whenever we get that going. So yeah, should be great.
That and the website is in the works.
Yeah, website
progressing
is
well.
Pretty much where it needs to be. The only thing now is that we want to have a bunch of articles already up.
Yeah.
So we're in the process of writing those and getting those structured and out there, and hopefully we'll even have maybe like a guest writer every once in a while. That'd be cool. Yeah. So yeah.
So that's close. It'll be launching in the next couple months.
Yeah, next couple months.
To be really broad about it, but we'll hype
just in case there's always delays and stuff. So yeah.
Yeah. So let's take a look at the year. Recently, some interesting numbers have surfaced. Some in line with some of our predictions, some not. And then there's also an article that I want to discuss about who's winning the generation that I'll give some details about.
That sounds good.
So again, and we've said this since we started this, the gaming industry's huge, and it keeps getting bigger, and it keeps outdoing the expectations of the people who do acknowledge that it's growing and who do think it's getting bigger, much less those who are still trying to say that it's dying and it's not a real thing.
The naysayers are very quiet these days.
Yeah, they've been proven extremely wrong. So the revenue for gaming this year is $116 billion.
$160 million. So what's interesting about this is one of our first videos, we talked about how big the industry was and where it was going and what was predicted. I think our prediction was that it was going to be 110 or upwards of 110 billion.
Well, so the prediction was 110 billion. We said it will go higher than that during the beginning of the year.
Yes.
Around mid-year,
it was actually looking like it was going to end right at about 104. Which
so there was a little dip.
Yeah, which would have been about $4 billion greater than the previous year. But obviously, analysts and others would have
jumped on that.
They would have been doom and gloom and said the sky is falling for gaming, and the usual things that we hear.
$104 billion sky falling.
Yeah, so $4 billion wouldn't have been as big of a thing, but then it ended up hitting 116.
Q4 was insane.
Yes.
So in Q4, the industry as a whole was up 30% from last year. And when it comes to sales numbers and industry growth numbers, that's massive for an industry that's been around as long as this industry has.
Well, not only that, but the previous Q4, the previous November in particular, because that's where the bulk of it comes from, was incredible. 2016 was such a great
We were already beating year over year for the last couple of years.
Yes, that was the first year. 2016 was the first year it hit $100 billion, sorry.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So, I mean, that's crazy. It's basically in Q4, the Xbox One X.
Yeah, that's one of the big things.
I mean, that's a big revenue-wise. We're talking about revenue. We're talking about money.
Yeah, at June, expectations being lower to 104.
Yeah.
And then the other 6 months of the year were pretty incredible. The X is largely to credit for that because it's a $500 purchase. There's upwards of 800 million of those. Possibly by now, first week of January, it could be over 1 million of those.
Getting to that million point,
you have the Switch largely to thank. And then much smaller part, you have stuff like the successes of PUBG, and then the success of the SNES.
The mini SNES, because that's continued to become, it's actually become more available in Q4 than it was.
But you got to put in perspective, that's an $80 thing.
That's a small
PUBG is what, $30 or $40?
Yeah.
So
they are selling a ton.
Yeah.
But big revenues like the Xbox One X are the ones that move that number quickly.
Definitely.
And so, one of the interesting things that I've heard, and I know you've referenced hearing, is about the PC sector.
Yeah. And well, I read one article in particular about this that was written from somebody that was very clearly pro-PC and anti-console, so it was really interesting. They tried to sort of twist some of the numbers to make it look like PC was on the exact same level as console. Right. But if you actually look at the way it works, boxed PC games throughout the year and digital PC games. So basically the only two ways to get your games.
Just all the software going to PCs.
Yes, it was $27.1 billion for PC, which is an incredible year for PC.
Yeah.
That's very good. Obviously PUBG had a little something to do with that.
A lot to do with that, yeah.
And then if you compare it to console games where software was basically just over 33 billion of the industry. So you can look at those numbers and say, well, they're actually pretty close. But you do have to factor in the fact that there's over 350 million gaming PCs out there. And those are just gaming PCs.
And that's kind of an old number. So we can say 350 to 400 million.
There could be somewhere
close
to 400
million. There's a lot of
million.
PC gamers, as you would call them,
Definitely.
because everyone has a PC.
Yes.
So, and then how many console gamers?
Compare that to the console sector of it. There's only about 110 to 120 million.
So there's a third as many people on all the consoles combined.
And they're
than on PC.
Still outselling the increasing numbers of PC.
And our software outsold by 4 billion. And 4 billion is a lot of money.
Yes.
I mean, both of those numbers do look close, but when you think about the fact it's billions, a third as many people are cranking out 4 additional billion, when in reality it should be a third as much, which would be 12 billion.
Definitely. And then also think about the fact that 2018 is going to be a banner year for Sony and Microsoft. They both, between the two of them, have between 4 and 6 first party or second party big games coming out.
Yeah.
So 2018 is going to be even bigger. 2017 was actually not that impressive for Sony or Microsoft when it comes to their big games. For PC it was, yes.
Yeah. So PC had its best year.
In a long
Not its
while.
best year, but one of its best years in a long while. Yeah. And console software still beat.
Still. Definitely. And accessories, it wasn't even close. It was like 30 times as much.
The accessories have been crazy this year, which I think we're going to start to mention a little bit later. And the accessories ties into a bigger discussion that I want to mention. So I ran into this article that I thought was really interesting that we should discuss. Yeah. So the article is titled, IDC Analyst states Microsoft has already lost this generation to Sony. Microsoft's focus should be on its unified gaming ecosystem. Now, let me start here. Okay. Let me start with the really subpar journalism that I ran into in the first paragraph. Yeah. Sony has sold, this is a direct quote, Sony has sold roughly 70 million PlayStation 4 units, and although Microsoft doesn't report Xbox One sales anymore, estimates put it at anywhere between 20 and 30 million short of Sony's numbers.
Well, I mean, they're right about that. That is actually pretty accurate. So like in June of, I think it was first or second week of June, I think it was the French division of Xbox let it slip that there was about 36.1 million Xbox One consoles out there. So if you look at the way the year works, the back half is quite a bit more console sales than the first half. So they probably had another 7 or so million, maybe 6 if it did poorly, which we know now the X is not doing poorly. The S is doing also very well. They had their record November month. We haven't seen December numbers yet, but I'm expecting it to be very good. So I'd add another 7 million console units sold to that number, which would put it at right around, 43?
40 to 45, yeah.
Yeah, so somewhere in there. So at least 41 million Xbox Ones out there. So that would say that is
okay, so I'll give you that the numbers seem like they work. What I won't give you is, this is a journalist writing an article that says Microsoft has lost because of a guess. Yeah. And it doesn't even say, like, you just gave me something there. You said the French division of Xbox leaked this, and that. Yeah. They did not give me that.
Yeah.
They just gave me, we don't know the Microsoft numbers, but based on our best guess, they're falling 20 to 30 million short.
Yeah.
I mean, it just goes along with a lot of the things we've said. That's really poor journalism to say, I'm going to guesstimate this number, and then I'm going to write an article slandering this company whose numbers I actually don't know at all.
Well, yeah, I mean,
that's crazy.
It is. I guess their article is not so much about who's winning in units. They're saying the entire generation. Well, the entire generation, doesn't it incorporate software and everything else?
So here's the thing. I'll tell you where that article went. They were saying that the title does say Microsoft is losing the generation to Sony. However, their citation for that is the console units.
Yeah.
They're not talking about anything else. We both know and have said a million times, console units don't make companies money.
Yeah,
I don't care how many millions of PlayStations you sell, you're barely pulling a profit off of each one.
Well, not only that, but all the companies have admitted that if they sell a console and no software to that console, they actually can lose money on that.
And here's the thing. I read on expecting, all right, let's see some software, some downloads, some network stuff. Nothing. That was their premise. Here's what their suggestion goes on to be. Microsoft needs to really push that PC thing that they're doing that we've talked about a million times. They need to, it said something about, they're combining Xbox gaming with Windows gaming, and they need to really push that Windows gaming sector to beat Sony. Is that not the craziest idea you've ever heard?
Well, I mean, obviously, that's what Microsoft has been trying to do. So on some level, they probably agree. But all we hear is negativity about the Windows Store, about how bad it is, about how the games don't run properly, about how everyone is always talking about how they're getting refunds for that type of thing. So that's not really working for them. It hasn't really been working for them.
And you remember that we did a video a little while back where Shannon Loftus in an interview said essentially what they've found with the Play Anywhere thing is that most people stay on their platform and they load it up once on the other platform and they're like, cool. And then they don't do it anymore.
Yeah.
So we know that that's not succeeding. But it's really interesting with so little information to say Microsoft is losing the generation because they have less Xboxes sold, which is not where the profit comes from. And then to turn around and say, but what they should do is keep putting those games on PC. No, nobody cares about the games on PC. I mean, a few people do, but not enough to be driving the type of revenue you'd be talking about if, in fact, Microsoft is losing the generation.
Exactly.
But Microsoft is absolutely profitable.
Yes.
I mean, they have profits coming from some places that I think a lot of people don't know.
Yeah, they have quite a few patents, essentially. So they have some that go into the actual development of games. They own a few there in that space. They have some that actually go into accessories and controllers and
Lots
things like
of patents
that.
there.
They have quite a few patents that are around the gaming sector or involved in it.
Stuff to do with the motion stuff, like the Kinect stuff. They hold a
yeah.
lot of patents that get used by other companies there. They get money for that. They've got the haptic feedback patent, the way that the controllers vibrate and respond to the game. If somebody wants to put that in their game, they have to go through Microsoft.
There's a reason why they push controllers. Why we're always hearing about a new controller every month. They're making tons
Xbox
of money.
has gone wild with controllers. They've got the Design Lab, the Elite controller. Everybody said the same thing about the Elite controller that they said about the X. Nobody's going to pay that for that.
But none of that is even comparable to what they're making off Xbox Live and digital downloads.
Xbox Live is a tremendous source of income. It's in the billions.
Yes.
Digital downloads, and we don't see that because, again, just like the person who wrote this said, they don't give us their numbers.
Yeah.
So the fact that so many people are buying digital now limits our understanding of what Microsoft really is selling.
Yeah.
And Microsoft doesn't advertise that. So the more that the digital realm keeps taking over, the less we see those massive, impressive numbers of digital downloads. The X came out, all these people went and bought all these enhanced titles. All they had to do was enhance the title through the developer, and they were just selling them like hotcakes.
Oh, I guarantee with all the people that have been buying X's, that a lot of those people are buying those X-enhanced games that they didn't have before. And most likely, they're buying them through the digital store.
Absolutely.
Xbox Live.
Yeah. I think it's become really obvious that maybe not most people, but a good majority of people buy their games digitally. Yeah. And now we don't see those numbers. We see the impressive numbers of physical sales.
Yeah. Well, I've mentioned before that some of the numbers that have come out in the last year have stated that up to 74% of all games sold are now digital. I think for the Xbox platform, I would say that it's probably higher than 74%.
Definitely.
Because, I mean, a lot of people don't think about this, but I started doing digital in 2010 on the 360. As soon as I started realizing those arcade games were downloadable instead of having to go to GameStop or wherever to buy them, I started downloading them. And as time went on, going into 2012, 2013, even some of the full-fledged big budget games were downloadable.
Yeah.
And I haven't looked back since then. I've always downloaded, just keep buying hard drives instead and filling those up. And I did it on 360. Now I'm doing it. I've got 4 hard drives on the one. So I think most people are actually buying those from the store.
I am 100% digital. I do not do anything that's physical anymore.
I think
a lot of people, at least 74% are.
On the Xbox
but probably
platform,
more than that.
I think most people are.
Yeah. And we don't see those numbers. So if the numbers we are seeing, the accessory numbers that we're seeing, the software, the physical software that we're seeing, those are big, impressive numbers.
Yes.
You know Xbox is pulling an incredible amount of revenue. So I would say Microsoft is thrilled with the sales of the X. They sold so much more than they ever anticipated. They were really going to market that as a premium product. They really didn't expect a giant number. It has probably doubled their expectation already.
I really think they did not expect it to sell as much as it has.
No.
And I really think they expected the S to be outselling it 4-1 or 5-1.
And from what we can figure, it's almost 50-50.
It's close. It seems to be about close to 50-50 or so.
Which is definitely not what they expected.
Yeah.
And they are profitable. They've always been profitable. That sector has been particularly profitable to them, hence them pushing that sector into the executive
and the promotions
level.
this year, yeah.
And that's, they were going to be happy with their profits off the X with their expected numbers, and look what it's doing. And I think if you look at Microsoft, they're happy with their profit from the X. They're happy with their profit from all these accessories.
Yeah.
They're happy with their profits from all these downloads and these enhanced games. Ultimately, you have to say who's winning a generation by profitability, because profitability is sustainability.
Definitely, yeah.
We can't...
So
they won't go on if they don't make any money.
Sounds like your argument against this article, this person that wrote it, is that you've got to look at all the factors there, and it's probably a lot closer than what this person thinks.
Yeah, it just comes across as so, I hate to use this word, but so ignorant to say, oh, well, Microsoft's losing the generation because they don't have as many hardware units out there. There's so much more to that business.
There is.
Especially with us knowing consoles are not the profitable sector of the business. That's very clear.
Everybody's aware that there are 70 million plus PS4s out there.
But how many are connected and downloading and paying a monthly cost to be on the network?
Not only that, but information has come out about a lot of these games not selling very well.
Yeah.
With 70 million people out there having more than 70 million, because a lot of times it's shared in a household.
Right.
And people aren't buying these games that are coming out. That's where the money is in that software. That's where the money is.
You don't make the money off the console. So, I think two major things about that article. I think you would need to either have solid information or at least say, this is the leak I'm basing my number on.
Yeah.
Something, just instead of just being like, well, we don't actually know, but it's around this. That sounds made up to me. And we can ground it, so I'm sure they had some type of information, but again, it should have been in there. And my other issue, of course, is, you're saying Microsoft's losing a generation, and you're basing it on the number of consoles that are out there. You're not basing it on what the consoles are doing, how much each person's engaging, how much they're paying. And that's, you can't say you're losing a generation based on that. You would have to have retitled it, Microsoft is losing the generation in terms of console sales.
Yeah, at first when you brought this up, I was more siding with them, but now I guess...
Thinking that they were talking about the whole picture.
Yeah. I mean, you're kind of right about what you're saying.
So they said that, and then they just went to the Xbox needs to focus on Windows gaming.
What Windows? Yeah, that's
And we'll link the article. We'll put
that's
it in
another one of those things that you think of as like a parody or something like.
When I read it, I was like, are you kidding me right now? So that's really interesting, and honestly, I think that Xbox probably will win December NPD.
It's very possible. We'll see how it goes. They've won quite a few Decembers in the past, so that could happen.
That's true.
Definitely.
And I think that, I think it's like you said earlier, the word of mouth with the X is huge right now.
Yeah, I always spend time reading comment sections all over the internet and looking at different social media. And in particular, like on Facebook, there's lots of groups that you can join, and I don't join to be active and like talk with people. I join just to see what people generally are thinking.
Yeah.
And even in some of the Xbox groups that are out there, for the last 3 or 4 years, there's been a great deal of negativity and a great deal of misinformation. People just spreading incorrect information about what the Xbox can do this entire time, and that seems to have gone away. And it seems to be pretty much all positive. People talking about how incredible the X is and telling other people you should get this system.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's just screenshots all over the internet, the Reddits, the social medias. The difference is clear.
Yeah.
You've got Nintendo people and Sony people seeing this and, really wanting
Reddit
to experience
is still
it.
greatly, misinformation
from
what I've seen. So
absolutely.
I always
but
tell
the
people don't go
screenshots
there
don't lie.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is whether you see it on Reddit, which, you should be avoiding, but a lot of people don't, or whether you're seeing them on Twitter, it doesn't matter. The screenshots and the Digital Foundry tests of these games,
they
all
the comparison videos, not just Digital Foundry, there's lots of people doing comparison.
Lots of people putting them out there, and it's causing other fan bases to really take notice and start to get them.
Those videos are getting popular.
So November, you really have to think a lot of the X sales for November were more of like the planned hardcore fans that had them pre-ordered or that they were planning on going and buying it right away. They sold them out that way. And then now you're starting to get people really have it in their house. And I think that the acceptance of these types of technologies has changed.
Yeah.
I mean...
It definitely has. I mean, if you look at the value with things, a lot of people say the comparison of the cell phone is not a valid comparison. I think it is the
it's
most
perfect.
I think it's the absolute closest possible comparison you can make
Absolutely.
to that, because you got to look at the cost versus what you're actually getting out of it.
Yeah.
You've got these phones that are now $1,000, and back when I was in corporate America, I would have seen. I have one here. I would have seen $1,000 worth of value out of having something like this. I needed to have always up to the second information going back and forth and being able to communicate with a great number of people.
Right.
Now that I'm no longer a part of that, I don't see this as having the value of $1,000 or anything like that. And in fact, I'd say it's like quite a bit less. My next phone, I don't think I'll spend more than $500 or $600 on it. If you remember,
now is cheap.
Yeah, now it's cheap. You remember many years ago when smartphones first came out, $600 was incredible.
Was insane.
Yeah. My first smartphone was $599, and a friend of mine was with me when we bought it, and he was shocked because he was spending like $80 or $100 in his phones.
Yeah, phones used to be free or $100, and the acceptance of them over the last, what would you say, 5 to 7 years? Has just increased and increased and increased. Yes. And we're at a point of diminishing return now. We're at a point where everybody's spending $1,000 every year or two on these new phones, and they don't do anything new and exciting. They're more and more disappointing as they come. Enter something like an Xbox One X. Now that your life has changed, that's what has value to you.
Now I can't even really put a value. I can't even put a price on how much I'm getting out of that, how many hours of entertainment I'm getting out. Even just in the little time I've had it, much less in the next few years, something you're paying $499 for that's worth quite a bit more.
So we're now talking about basically half the cost of a lot of phones. Lasts a lot longer. You'll be playing on that for years to come. And it provides something better, and it provides something unique.
Definitely.
Which we're not getting with phones anymore. I think that's the perfect analogy, because to me, it's always been shocking to watch each year. It's like 100 more, 100 more, 100 more.
Oh, yeah.
We're now at 1,000. We've got people talking about, you have gaming journalists saying that the X is too much money. How could you charge this much? And those same people are buying a $1,000 phone every other year that could get a $500 X for 5 to 7 years minimum.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Definitely.
And that's a shift.
The price in phones is going to continue to go up. You'll see $1,400, $1,500 phones
Absolutely.
in the next few years.
By next year, they'll toss another couple hundred on there, couple hundred. And it's a diminishing return. They're not getting a couple $100 more exciting.
Yeah.
They're getting less exciting. They're becoming
I agree.
Kind of convoluted in a big mess. Like some of the things that are happening with the iPhones now, it's like it's actually slid down. But the price will keep sliding up. And Microsoft isn't doing that.
That's true.
Their prices have stayed consistent for a very long time. The X is a premium product.
Their prices have stayed consistent, and you're getting so much more.
You're getting so much more. Again, think about how much you get out of one game that's $60 versus how much you get out of your phone bill that's probably twice that.
Easy, 50 to 100 hours on so many of these games. Look at what we put into Gears, 1,000 hours. So
it's crazy.
Definitely.
It's a lot of value in that industry. And it will continue to grow. Soon we'll have to do predictions for revenue next year.
Yeah, we should,
Do you have a prediction yet? I don't have a prediction yet.
I think it's actually going to be tough to eclipse 116
That's big.
billion.
That's a big year.
Because that ended up being way over, and we don't have an X releasing next year. Although it is still selling. The Switch is going to continue to sell and break records as it's been doing. Yeah. So it'll be close. It'll be
right around the same, probably.
I'd say between 116 and 120.
Yeah. If we can pull some growth. We're realizing that this year was huge.
Lots of games are coming out, though, so that might make it up.
Lots of games are coming out. Yeah. And lots more X's to be purchased, because the X hasn't been out that long. Same with the Switch, because the availability has been so limited.
Yeah.
So we have one shout-out. And then on that note, so shout out to Spoonman, who's always selling our stuff on Twitter and says really nice things about us. He really gets it, too. He gets the journalism and analysis side to what we do, and that's what our big goal is. So we should have shouted him out a while ago as well. Definitely. And on that note, we have a lot of others we need to shout out.
Yeah, we do.
And it's hard to keep track.
It is really hard to keep track, so if you can let us know if you're sharing it, because it appears that YouTube really isn't promoting smaller channels at all, it seems like.
Yeah, I don't think we ever show up in search.
Yeah, some of the stuff I've seen recently, I've done a little bit of research on it, is kind of surprising. But they really do promote their biggest people, and they really put all the attention there. So small channels like ours have basically no chance at growth. So sharing, likes, that type of thing is the only way it'll happen. So let us know if you're doing that, so we can mark you down. We always remember the people that have our backs, and we always are going to have their backs in the future. Lots of stuff planned for that kind of thing. And, we're very grateful that you guys do that. So
yeah, really the growth in our views has been because of people sharing and liking and discussing and having nice things to say.
Absolutely.
So
We've gotten a lot of subs recently, too, even though we haven't put out a bunch of content over the holidays. Lots of new subs, so thank you guys for subbing as well.
Thank you. Let us know if you are sharing our stuff, especially if we've never shouted you out and you're wondering where in the world your shout out is. Just let us know so that we can get it in there. And then Crossfire, 7 p.m. Eastern on Friday.
Yes.
Both of us will be on. So if you can check that out, we would greatly appreciate that as well. Stop by to support Mooch and Boom and all the other regulars that are on there as well.
Yeah.
And we'll try to promote that on Twitter.
Yeah,
put the link out, stuff like that.
For sure.
So, yeah. Thanks for watching.